3. Near the Porte de la Marine there are 2 or 3 broad streets, lined with fine European houses, inhabited by consuls, merchants, and bankers. This is where the Hôtel de Paris is located, where the French stay. Apart from this district, Tunis, as we have said, consists of an inextricable jumble of narrow, winding alleys where the sun penetrates little. I like to wander at random through this strange maze, which has 1,000 surprises in store for the European. The Moorish buildings, tall and wide, with massive doors, and rare windows lined with latticework painted green, leave only a narrow passage between them, impassable to carriages, always crowded with a teeming crowd of men and animals. Sometimes the upper floors of the houses meet, and the street changes into a dark arch, under which one hesitates to enter. At every moment you must go up or down, climb stairs, take innumerable detours, retrace your steps after having crossed dead-end crossroads. In narrow squares shaded by tall palm trees, black women crouch behind piles of fruit, dates, pomegranates, oranges, and bananas. A penetrating smell of aromatics wafts through the air. Some of the dark passages are lined with 2 rows of shops, with high thresholds, in the form of niches, lighted by smoky lamps. In the semi-darkness one catches a glimpse of vague shapes, Moors bent over invisible work, among heaps of rags and scrap metal, rusty old weapons and hikes hanging from the walls. In the center of a crossroads lined with native cafes, a large fig tree stands near a well. A circle of onlookers, children, and veiled women surrounds an Arab, a storyteller by profession, who, seated on the coping, tells a story with many gestures and guttural inflections of voice. From time to time, on a street corner, a squalid guardhouse. Soldiers in battered blue jackets and trousers, worn to the core, sit on their heels in the stream. Among them are old men with white beards and incredibly young men. Everyone is busy knitting small pieces of wool. The Bey's government was not generous. Payment is often several years late and, in the meantime, you must live well. The sentry, also crouched down, holds between his crossed legs a dog gun, all rusty, with a crooked bayonet. It is a spectacle not calculated to give a high opinion of the Tunisian army to see these ragged, sun-cheeked, ideally thin soldiers engaged in a woman's profession. Farther on, a chorus of nasal voices comes out of a low window. I look through this opening, and in a low room whitewashed with milk of lime I see about 40 toddlers, to whom an old man in a turban, armed with a long bamboo, makes them recite verses from the Quran. It is a madrasa, a Muslim school. I enter a street a little wider than the others, full of people and where traffic is exceedingly difficult. At every moment it is necessary to line up against the wall, to let Arabs on horseback pass, camels carrying veiled women, troops of mules laden with merchandise which almost naked black people drive before them with piercing cries. What is this hooded, silent crowd that slips under a vault from which hangs a large copper lantern of delicate workmanship? It is time for prayer. From the top of the nearby minaret, the muezzin threw out his plaintive melody 3 times. Worshippers crowd the entrance to the mosque of Sidi Mahrez. I see a vast paved courtyard, surrounded by galleries with painted arcades, adorned with arabesques and 1,000 festoons. In the center, a fountain, decorated with mosaics with rosettes, lets out its thin trickle of water, which falls rustling into a vast marble bowl. Under the vault, encumbered with a heap of slippers, is the ablution basin. The faithful stop there for a moment and then, crossing the courtyard, lift a thick curtain behind which I catch a glimpse of low naves supported by a forest of columns, illuminated by a soft and mysterious light. Long lines of men dressed in white prostrate themselves and take turns standing up together. Touching the mats of the forehead, they pray and stretch out their hands towards the east. One night, in the company of divers Europeans, escorted by a black person, carrying a paper lantern and a large stick to chase away stray dogs, we went to visit a tom-tam or Moorish singing cafe. Only the European quarter is illuminated, the other streets of Tunis are as black as oven doors, and every passerby is provided with his lantern. In fact, the city is perfectly safe. After walking for a long time through endless detours, we enter a vast hall, crowded with natives, crouching on mats. At the bottom of the bare walls, there is a stone bench on which we sit. At the back of the hall, on a sort of platform, 3 women make up an amazingly simple orchestra. One plays a huge accordion, the other holds a large vase covered with a skin on which she strikes in time, which produces a dull, mournful sound. The third uses a stringed instrument called a darbuka. They sing to the accompaniment of a slow, wild, modulated tune that moves, penetrates, intoxicates. This music, this barbaric song, awakens in the depths of the soul indefinable impressions, like memories of vanished existences, reminiscences of a forgotten world. It grips you like vertigo, pulls you in, freaks you out. To the sound of instruments and voices, a young woman was dancing. Her body, wrapped in a pink silk cloth, arched frantically, twisted in voluptuous contortions. His eyes shone with a metallic gleam, his whole body shuddered. Her feet remaining almost motionless, the bust alone bent in feverish movements, then she would suddenly spring forward and pirouette, waving 2 shreds of cloth. It was a deep night when we got back to the hotel. The lantern of Mucci, our guide, having been extinguished, we groped our way through a labyrinth of streets and covered passages, in the silence of the sleepy city, wading among puddles and bumping into piles of rubbish at every step.